Hello and thanks for joining us on Cooking with Gerry. A good video for you to watch if you like your oatmeal porridge for breakfast. I have what I think would be a great substitute instead of using the oat flakes. Because if you're eating oat flakes, especially the milled oats, which are called instant oats, microwave oats, quick oats, minute oats, that food product will very quickly turn into sugar once it enters your stomach. If you can balance that oatmeal porridge with something that's not sugar, which would be any kind of seed or nut. I made a video a couple of weeks ago. I added an egg also, which will increase the protein and balance out the sugar. But if you're just eating the oatmeal porridge by itself, it's going to be a lot of sugar that's entering your stomach. And now I don't mean actual sugar, although I've seen many people still add sugar to that oatmeal porridge. What I mean by it's a lot of sugar is that it's the same effect on your body as would be sugar. I've mentioned a few times this book by Dr. Mark Harmon called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And one of the parts he explains was from another expert that said your body doesn't know the difference between a bowl of cornflakes and a bowl of sugar. So imagine eating a bowl of cornflakes. It's going to have the same effect on your body as a bowl of sugar. So I think the actual words in his book were, if you have a bowl of cornflakes without the sugar, or you have a bowl of sugar without the cornflakes, it's going to be the same effect happening in your body. If you can add something to that oatmeal porridge that's not a grain and not going to be so quickly turned into sugar, you can help balance that meal, which will also help to balance your blood sugar level, which is very important for overall well-being. Also, if instead of adding sugar, you add some kind of extra virgin oil, that'll provide lots of good omega-3 fats, oils, which will help, again, balance that blood sugar level. What I have here is whole grain wheat and quinoa that I washed and rinsed. If you're going to make for a lot of people, even 2 or 3 people, you'll probably want to do the measurements. Normally it's 2 parts water to 1 part grain or seed. First you want to wash and rinse the grain and seed, and then put it in the frying pan. And I added a little bit of extra water because I also added to the saucepan sesame seed, flax seed, raw peanuts, which will all absorb water during the cooking process. And even before it was cooked, I had to add about half a cup, maybe 100 milliliters of water, because I noticed that it was not going to be enough water to complete the cooking process of the whole grain wheat and the quinoa. The whole grain wheat and the quinoa are better choices than oatmeal flakes in terms of balancing the blood sugar, because the whole grain wheat is in its complete form. Instead of being flattened as an oatmeal flake is, it's flattened between usually 2 steel rollers. That's part of the process at the factory. And quinoa, many people think it's a grain, but it's actually a seed. So the sugar content is much lower. There's higher protein, fat, and fiber in the quinoa. Other choice would be amaranth. But I didn't. I have a little bit left, and I'll save it for another meal. So I put all those ingredients together to cook for the full time, because they all take about the same time. The flax and the sesame seed and the raw peanut And the other two can be pre-soaked the night before, or at least pre-soaked for about 4 hours. That will reduce the cooking time, which is important if you're pressed for time in the morning because of your daily schedule, work or school or other things you have to do. If it's on a day off, then you probably have a bit more freedom with how much time you can use to prepare breakfast. So that's what this is. At the end of the cooking process, there was a little bit of extra liquid, so I added 2 tablespoons of chia seed, which soaked up that extra water. I also put in the water at the beginning about half a teaspoon of pink salt and about a tablespoon of virgin olive oil. So let me show you. So it kind of looks like a porridge, but there's no oat flake. Lots of good stuff in here. I have made enough for 2 meals, which is why I have another separate dish, because I don't want this part to be my next meal. It's much better to have food freshly prepared, but in one way I try to make things easier by preparing food beforehand. If I'm going to make something like this, the cooking time is only a few minutes more because it takes more time for the water to heat up than if I were to do this on 2 separate occasions. So it's saving time, saving energy, saving gas. So that's why I do twice the amount, and the other half will be part of my next meal, which will likely also include vegetables that I'll cook similar to this, which I'll now explain. In here I have a small piece of pumpkin, a small apple. I washed both those items. I cut them into small pieces, and I put them in the frying pan with about 2 tablespoons of water and less than a tablespoon of, I think I used sunflower seed oil. And I let that cook for about 5 minutes. And right at the end, when I turned off the heat, I also added a small handful of pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. You could also add nuts. In either of these, you could also add a natural nut butter, peanut butter, almond butter, hazelnut butter. There's also pumpkin seed butter sometimes available, sunflower seed butter. That'll increase the fat, protein, fiber content, which will help balance any kind of sugars that you have by way of fruit or vegetable. So let me show you this. This again was a fairly simple process, fairly quick. Right there you see the pumpkin and the apple and seeds. So I'll use about half of what I prepared here, and I'll use all of this for my meal. And it's balanced, natural, and the main thing is it's whole food. There's nothing that was prepared, pre-packaged, pre-cooked. So it's a healthy meal. And that brings me to what I wanted to mention in this part of the segment where I try to share some useful information. It's advised to cook at home more often because anything, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that's freshly prepared is much healthier, has more nutritional value. And you know that you've prepared it versus a robot or a machine at a factory or a worker at the factory who's basically just interested in a paycheck and doing a good job than he is in your specific health. Not the same level of interest in your health as you would have. So cooking at home more often is a great way to eat healthier, also because many times the food that's prepared, pre-packaged, pre-cooked, there's a lot of ingredients that you would probably not choose. Many times they add extra salt because salt makes things taste better, especially when the quality of the food items that are being put into the mix are of lower quality. You preparing something for yourself, you will choose the best quality depending on what you can find and what you can afford. So that's one of the best reasons why it's better to cook at home. Now when I say cook at home, I am not meaning taking something that's prepared from the freezer and putting it into the oven or microwave. Yes, you're preparing it at home, but it was prepared beforehand, likely in some kind of factory. Same situations apply. Either a robot or a machine was involved in the making it, and someone who doesn't even know you was involved in the making it. I can remember one time I was at a grocery store and I saw a man, I don't know how old, I'll say mid-30s, early 40s. His shopping cart was full of those TV dinners. Might be called frozen dinners, frozen entrees. And for him, it's his option of how he prepares his meals. Number one, it's easy, quick. Number two, it's cheap. I looked later in the advertisement for that grocery store, and that specific frozen entree was on sale for something like $2. So he had about 30 of these in his shopping cart, which means he's got 30 meals to go to, which were $2 each. Very cheap. He might make 2 of those TV dinners for one meal. So it's a cheap and easy way to eat, but it's nowhere near as healthy as if he were to prepare it something fresh, preparing something from scratch. Spending the few minutes to chop up the vegetables and the few minutes to prepare everything else, more than a few minutes if you're preparing for more than 1 or 2 people. For me, it's fairly quick and easy because I'm usually only preparing for one person. So the first item that I wanted to express is cook at home more often. I know many times it's not possible because of a busy life schedule. You can consider on one of your days off to prepare some food and put it in the freezer in individual containers. It's not going to the philosophy of preparing fresh food, but something that you have prepared is much better than buying something prepared at the grocery store. So if you have it in the freezer, you can remove it, let's say the night before if you're going to have it for breakfast or dinner, depending on how long it takes to thaw. Or when you wake up in the morning, you know you want to have this for dinner, so take it out of the freezer, put it in the fridge, and when you get home, all you have to do is heat it up. So that's choices for you to consider. Eating what we eat is very important for overall health, and it's much better if you're able to find the time to make these additional considerations to help your body stay happy and healthy. When your body is happy and healthy, your mind will also be happy and healthy, which will make your choices better. So, the second thing I wanted to mention is, we spoke about this a little bit in yesterday's video, how you eat, referring to what's happening when you're putting the food in your mouth. Are you distracted by the TV or the cell phone or chatting with someone who's sitting beside you? Another aspect of how you eat is how your emotional state is. Are you angry, scared, worried while you're eating? Or are you relaxed, resting, and full of joy and gratitude while you're eating? Those different emotional influences will have an impact on how the food affects your body. If you're in the agitated state, you're going to digest much less efficiently than if you're in the calm, rested, relaxed state. So that's important. If you want to watch TV, try not to have it one of those shooter movies or lots of intense, suspenseful moments. Try and have something calm. So how you eat and what you eat is also important, as we've been discussing, but it's also important what you ate, right? If you can understand the concept of the food that you eat is what's creating your human form, it's also easy to understand what the cow ate, for example. If you eat beef, it's important that that cow, where the beef came from, was able to eat like a cow. I've read in this book by Dr. Mark that many of these farm factories, they'll feed their animals stuff that you wouldn't normally feed an animal because, number one, it's cheaper, and number two, it gets them fatter quicker, which makes the turnover process quicker, which makes the company more money. One of the food examples that Dr. Mark mentions in his book is that cows are many times fed candy. Candy that would otherwise not be sellable for humans because something went wrong in the process of making the candy or in the storage of the candy, that it cannot be put into packages for human consumption. So that candy goes to these animals. These animals eat these candies, and candy is not what a cow would eat if it were grazing the fields and eating grass. Plants are also an example. Many times plants are fed chemical fertilizers or other unnatural substances to help them grow or to fight disease, to minimize the impact of insects. So it's important to consider what you're eating, but also what you ate was eating during its lifetime. Sometimes impossible to know, but if you haven't gone to the special section of the grocery store, of the meat section, to look for the specific food that was grown organic, grass-fed, natural, in terms of what nature would provide for the animal, chances are you're buying meat, chicken, or fish from one of these factory farms. You have to look for the good stuff, because the good stuff's going to be more expensive, because there's more quality involved in producing the good stuff. Anyways, that's my speech for today. This will be my breakfast. Half of this will be my lunch. And try this next time you want to have oatmeal porridge. I had an idea videos ago. If you're not sure if you or your family is going to like the alternate to oat flakes of whole wheat grain or quinoa or amaranth, even whole grain rice can be used as a morning porridge, a little bit healthier than the oatmeal flake. Go to one of those bulk barns or bulk food stores. There's a store in Canada called Bulk Barn. I go there a lot when I'm living in Canada. And just buy the smaller quantities so you can try 1 or 2 meals instead of at the grocery store where you'll have to buy a bigger package and you later find out that you or your family don't like it.